why I moved back to Cleveland, Ohio, an 8-year review of why I moved to Cleveland, and then a little bit of a recap review of my experience over the last 8 years. Good, the bad, a little of each. That is coming up in this video. Hey, it's Joel Gableman with Gableman Group and Red One Realty. If this is your first time to the channel, living in Cleveland, then welcome. We cover all things I think you guys would want to learn about Cleveland, Ohio. Of course, real estate, but also things to do with the family, fun places to go, good food to eat, you name it. If I think you might find it interesting, I try to share what it's like to be here in Cleveland, Ohio. We focus on families that need more space, whether you have more kids are getting bigger, or maybe the parents or in-laws are starting to move in with you. If you need more space, give us a call, text, email, schedule a Zoom call. Contact information is below, and we get calls from people moving and upsizing in the city, outside of the city, outside of the state, sometimes even internationally, and we love helping people out. Now let's get into the video of an 8-ish year recap of why I moved to Cleveland. Let's start with number 5. It is a great place to raise kids. There are excellent schools, both statewide and nationally ranked schools here that are public schools as well as private schools, whether you choose to go the private route or the public route. And there are lots of choices. So in the private schools, whether you want a Catholic school or a Jewish school, there are lots and lots of choices on both fronts. All girls school, all boys school, co-ed school, you name it, you can find it here in Cleveland. So you also have great things and activities to do with kids. Even though it's not Colorado skiing, you've got skiing here in the winter, you've got biking, hiking, trails, the metro parks. We have one of the densest metro parks, I believe, in the country, the Emerald Triangle. There are tons of museums. You've got the orchestra, you've got sporting events, you've got Playhouse Square. I mean, the list is almost endless of things to do with the kids. And it's relatively easy.
That was easy!
And that gets to number 4. Now, when I say easy, I'm talking about ease of life. When I was working in Northern California and San Francisco, Walnut Creek, it took me an hour-and-a-half commute to get to work. And when I was working in Chicago, I was in commercial banking. To drive down to Chicago or go to Northbrook to see my in-laws, it could take a long time to drive. Parking was a pain. So in Cleveland, parking's easy, driving's easy.
Traffic, no more traffic.
It's just an easier way of life. Parking, driving, commutes, places to go, going to the grocery store, having Costco or Whole Foods have stuff ready. Costco will even drop food off at your door. I know they'll do that in California and other places as well. It's just an easy way of life and affordable. Number 3, now this is personal to me. I was starting a business. So I was working in Northern California. I was working in Chicago. In Chicago, I was doing institutional real estate lending with US Bank in the city. And then I went downstream to small business lending. Went then when my wife matched to her postdoc, she's a psychologist, to San Francisco, worked at Chase for a few years. My wife said, listen, she was homesick and wanted to start a family and wanted to move back to Chicago. Well, Chicago's half the price of San Francisco, and Cleveland is half the price of Chicago. She knew that I was tired of the bureaucracy, and she said, look, there's a great opportunity for me in Cleveland. If you want to go, I'll go. So I was very fortunate.
I'm a lucky man.
Thank you, Ash, that we went to Cleveland, Ohio, so I could start my own business. I could buy a house for a really nice house for under, at the time, $200,000, $250,000. And it allowed me the opportunity to have that flexibility because the cost of living is just, frankly, very affordable. And I could have money saved, try out some business ideas without worrying about a big albatross on my neck of large expenses for housing, large expenses for living, large expenses for taxes, and on and on. So that was a big benefit for me. It was a great quality of life and a lower cost of living, certainly than Northern California or Chicago, where to get a half-decent house in the burbs, you're looking at $600,000-$700,000. I'm still selling houses today at sub 200 that are nice, and you can get an amazing home for under $500,000.
This is a beautiful, beautiful home.
So that just gives you a frame of reference of the different ease of living and starting a business. That was one of my big reasons, is so I can start what I'm doing now. Number 2 is also somewhat unique, and that's just being close to family. My wife was depressed for the first few years because it was hard to get a niche. One of the negatives is Cleveland is not a very transitionary city. So when we moved here, a lot of people had known each other for years or decades, and it was somewhat hard to break in. That changed when we had kids and they went to school and play dates, and then all the parents got together and the moms and dads and all of that other good stuff. But for the first few years, she was very homesick, and we were seriously considering moving back to Chicago simply because it's hard to build a network of friends here. That was the negative. That said, Cleveland is still a heck of a lot closer to Chicago than San Francisco. And we had my family here, so it was easier to go to Chicago for a 7-hour drive than it was to fly from San Francisco. We were still Midwest based. That was the other appeal of having a built-in support network. And again, this is personal to me, but I do know people who come here to Cleveland, and if you already have kids, it's kind of an instant injection into a social network. If you don't have kids, it's a little bit more challenging. That would be the negative of Cleveland, is a lot of people have known each other for many years, and it might be harder to break into certain circles.
I've been there, boy. It's hard to make friends.
And number one, this is kind of a little bit of an overlap with some of the other items, but that is just the cost of living. I think I mentioned when I was in San Francisco, a nice house, you're looking at between 800 to 1,000 a square foot. So a 2,500 square foot home or 1,700 square foot home, 1,700 square foot home could cost, 1.2 to 1.7 million dollars. Now this was like 8 years ago. I don't know if prices are higher or lower in Northern Cal, but that's where things were when I was there. And Chicago, to get a decent home, you're probably looking at $600,000-$700,000. In Cleveland, you can get a nice home under $250,000. A really nice home for under $500,000, and an incredible home less than $750,000. Obviously, if your budget is up, I sold a home for almost $3 million, and there are luxury homes in all markets, but your money just goes further in Cleveland than in lots of other markets.
That's money in my pocket.
Now, I know some people are going to say the property taxes are high. Yeah, in certain markets, some parts of Cleveland Heights, University Heights, Shaker, property taxes can be 4%. So I was over at an estate sale. The house was around $2 million, and I overheard a couple asking how much the taxes were. And I happened to answer back. I said taxes on this $2 million home are going to be around $80,000 a year, $70,000 to $80,000 a year. That is not all markets, and there are different areas that have lower property taxes. Are there some negatives also? Yeah, there's some negatives. You've got RETA, which is regional income tax, which is if you work in one city but live in another, because you worked there and you generated income there, then they hit you with taxes. And if I sell a house in one part, another part, another part at the end of the year, I need to mention which of the different cities that I sold houses in, because I've got to pay the proportionate taxes to all those different areas. There's always trade-offs, but high level, it is a great cost of living and an easy place to raise a family. Are there things that I miss about San Francisco? Of course. I miss the ocean. I miss the weather. I miss the food. There is an energy there that is not here. Do I miss Chicago? Yes, there are parts of Chicago I miss a lot. Granted, I was there pre-COVID. I heard a lot has changed in the city. There's a lot I miss about Chicago as well. There's going to be pros and cons. There are going to be things that you miss, and some things are better, some things are worse. That's just the nature of things. And I think about it, if you put me if you knock me out and you put me in, put me in a bedroom and knock me out for 24 hours and woke up and you said, Joel, what city are you in? Am I in Chicago? Am I in Cleveland? Am I in North Carolina? Am I in...
It all looks the same.
Outside of weather, I'd be hard-pressed to tell you where I was. There are a lot of similarities. Now, I'm not saying if I'm in Florida or California on the coast or Texas. I'm talking about a lot of these Midwest cities. Once you're in the suburbs, a lot of them feel more or less similar, right? And candidly, with children, it's not like I'm able to go and take advantage of the nightlife, the bar scenes, the clubs, the concerts, and everything else. My kids are little.
I like the nightlife. I like to boogie.
I've got 3 kids, 2 7-year-olds and a 2.5-year-old. I'm not able to take advantage of all the nightlife of Cleveland. And there's a ton of nightlife. You got professional sports teams and restaurants, and you've got clubs and all these new places that are opening and new developments. There's some really cool things here. Just like there's really cool things in Chicago and Atlanta and all these other areas. Now, if I were in Miami or California, certainly I'd be able to tell the difference. but I'm just not at the phase of life for my life where I'm going to be able to take advantage of going to, taking a boat out on the ocean, or going over to the Marina District, or going to Miami to the new hot clubs. I'm tired at 10 o'clock at night, so maybe when I'm older, I'll move out of Cleveland. But at this stage of life, to have cost of living and ease of life and great school choices and great activities for the family, Cleveland has been a great place to live. So let's do a quick recap of what it's like 8 years later of living in Cleveland, Ohio. You've got great place to raise a family, ease of life, starting a business because cost of living is so low. Number 2 for me was being closer to family. And number 1, which I mentioned, is the cost of living. All these things have made Cleveland a great place to live. I hope this answers lots of questions of an 8-year review. Are there things that I would like different? Of course. Are there things that I would not change? Of course. Always pros and cons. If you are thinking about moving to Cleveland, whether it's for relocation or upsizing or moving to another city in Cleveland and want to pick my brain, I am here to help. We love helping people out. At the very least, point you in the right direction to bounce off some ideas. Did I miss something? Is there some things about Cleveland that you say, hey, Joel, you've been here for 8 years. You missed one of the best things about Cleveland, especially if you're moving in from another area. It's X. Let me know in the comments. Again, I read all the comments. I don't always get a chance to respond to all of them, but love to hear what you guys are thinking. If I missed something or if there's something that I should have added that I didn't. Either way, if something I put down there you disagree with or agree with, you get the idea. All right, guys. I will see you guys in the next video. Be safe. Talk to you soon.